So welcome, Jonathan. It's an incredible pleasure to have you on the podcast. And I remember our first meeting many years ago. I think it was actually just before the pandemic, when we were. I think we met first in London at a joint event, and then I invited you
Yeah.
to my university to do a
Yep.
presentation with my students. And I think then came the pandemic, and
Yep.
then we met a few months later for the next time. So every time we meet, it's a great pleasure. And I'm very, very proud to have you on the podcast today. And maybe to start, tell us a little bit about you and also about Master and Dynamic.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be speaking to you, unfortunately, virtually, but we'll see each other again in person. So I'm Jonathan Levine. I'm the founder and CEO of New York City-based luxury audio company, Master and Dynamic. I started the company. I started thinking about the company in 2013. I launched it in 2014. I've never been in audio before. I've never been in the luxury business before. I'm a serial consumer products entrepreneur. And I got the idea to create Master Dynamic from my two sons who were very into music. One of them was a DJ, the other one was a videographer. And that's where this is also at a time when they were using Beats. Beats was taking over the world, and I just saw a different opportunity. And I think part of the success is that we did not try and become the next Beats. We took a very different path.
Yeah, I remember that you told me the first time we met how critical design is for you in that, and not only design but also excellent audio. But tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about the design aspect of Master and Dynamic.
Yeah, it's still what drives us. I tell people all the time, and it's 100% true. Everything we do, every product we do starts with design. And then we layer in all of our technologies, whether it be software, whether it be acoustics, and other ideas. But again, and materials, but it always starts with design. And I think I remind people that in the history of wearables, of which headphones are probably one of the first technology wearables ever invented, the key to being successful in wearables is you have to design them so people want to wear them. If people, like anything else, whether it be a watch, glasses, sometimes people forget that. So we've been very fortunate to be very focused on that, and it's still our North Star.
Mm. And I have my own pair of MW75s here in my hand, and I think since we first met, I had the pleasure to use your headphones and your earphones practically every day. So the earphones are my go-to earphones when I have meetings, and I use them practically on every meeting. And these guys I really use when I want to listen to music here at the house, or especially on a plane. And I can only confirm what you said. The design aspect is just incredible. The durability is incredible. The sound is incredible. So every time I wear them, it's an experience.
Thank you. We appreciate your being a long-time fan and user. And by the way, that's part of our marketing strategy is when we have people like you using our product and being seen in public, it creates interest in the products for sure.
Mhm. And one thing that I wanted to ask you also, since you also just told us that, as a serial entrepreneur, you did a lot of things more maybe in the consumer goods sector, and then luxury was something maybe new for you as a category. What is for you luxury, and how do you see the luxury world evolving?
What is luxury? I I didn't, I probably, without knowing it, I was probably a luxury consumer for a good portion of my life. It doesn't mean that I wanted to, pay for the most expensive product or the most widely distributed products. I really wanted something that evoked something visceral to me, whether it be the materials, the craftsmanship, probably some of the scarcity, this concept of discovery. I think I consider one of the things that I think about with luxury, and it's what I use in my own business, is the concept of effort. For me, when I see the effort that goes into building or designing a product, whether it be a pair of shoes, sunglasses, you name it, that's the connection I have. And I think it's probably, for me, it's stronger just because I'm a maker myself. To me, that's luxury. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the word effort, because there is also a connection with, typically a lot of people say it's craftsmanship or so, but I think it's more than craftsmanship. It's kind of it's the intentionality of creating, products that really matter to people. And I think this is also where the design aspect comes in.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. No.
yeah.
No, I was going to say, I think that there's a nuance between craftsmanship and effort. Effort, I feel, is in the design process of why did they put that there versus here? Why did they do this type of stitching versus something? And when that effort is also part of the functionality, it really, it becomes very special. Yeah.
Mhm. And what is the inspiration for you, since you just mentioned the design process, for you and your team when you come up with, for example, a new headphone? How do you get the inspiration for that?
Well, I think in the first products that we made, they were, I guess I have a pretty big team by now, but when I first started, it was a very small team. I hired one designer. He's still with us. And I sort of gave him the general gist of what I wanted. And my sensibility is, I guess, what some people would call industrial chic. I love when I can look at something and, here I'm in Paris and I was just in London. I, for me, what I like that sort of when I can see the history that went into something, and I can see part of the industrial age, and then how it still exists in the modern age. So, I'm a big believer in this idea that the future needs heritage.
Mhm.
And I think that's look at the microphone in front of you, that you're talking into, that metal mesh, that recessed metal mesh, hinders back to probably some of the first microphones. It's functional, but it could also be just fabric, which would completely create a completely different, aesthetic, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And I think maybe connected to this, because both of us share a passion for travel. And I know you are, as you just mentioned, you're in Paris right now, and it's just been in London. I'm going to Asia tomorrow. So for you, when you travel, is travel also for you a source of inspiration? And if yes, kind of where do you, or how do you get inspiration through travel?
yeah, it's a huge source of inspiration. And it's not just in Europe. It could be, I go to, a lot of different places. What is the I never come to a city saying I want to go see that store or that museum. I like to meander. I like the sense of adventure and stumbling on things. Um, I look down a lot versus looking up, meaning I see things in the
Mm,
street, in the manhole covers and in the chains, that are around this church and even the stonework. I walk a lot, I run a lot, and I just try and stay very observant.
mm,
I'm constantly taking photos on my phone of things that inspire me, and then going back and sketching things. And yeah, I mean, it's the happiest part of my. I mean, I'm a I'm a very lucky and fortunate entrepreneur, but I always tell people the best part of my day is when I get to work with my product team on new or existing products, or a lot of my travels in Europe, as you know, are with my collaboration partners, and being able to sit with them and create. I learned so much. I learned so much. Yeah.
Wonderful. No, and it just makes me reflect also on my own travel. And I think what you say is so important because, for example, for me, I always laugh when I'm at the airports to see, for example, which luggage are people using. And then, in different places in the world, you see different brands, different expressions. In some places, it's much more fashionable, in other places, much more functional. And the same when you go to restaurants or so. And I think just observing people all over the world is such a is so important for what we do, and to get an understanding also for for trends and for also the differences in culture. And sometimes they can be 2 or 3 countries that are close to each other but somehow have a completely different way of expressing. Some maybe more introspect, some much more extrovert, and so on. So I think this is so critical.
Yep. Agreed.
Talking about collaborations, so how important are collaborations for you, and what makes a great collaboration? Because of course, in the luxury industry, a lot of brands are doing collaborations. So tell us a little bit about your view on collaborations, and maybe also your learnings.
For sure. Well, I've been doing collaborations since we launched, literally in 2014. We were very fortunate to be connected with some young designers, gentlemen who still have a brand called Proenza Schuler, based out of New York. We did some custom headphones. People still talk about them. And for me, just to be candid, and I'm sure other entrepreneurs share this at the start of the business, for me, it was just about, borrowing brand affinity. And, we had no record, we had just launched, we had zero recognition, and it was borrowing, their brand equity. And we did that, quite frankly, for, I would say the first 3 years, and did it well. Then things turned into more, usually the first collaborations were not money makers, and were just brand building. Then they started to generate revenue for both parties and brand building. And now it's turned into a very big part of our business. So what is important in a collaboration? One is, I like to work with very different companies. I believe that brands, I think you and I have talked about this in the past, that I think the brands that I've always loved in my life and still attract my attention, old or new, are the ones that I say create holy shit moments, things that you didn't expect them to do. And then when you think about it, you say, oh, that's exactly why they make sense. And then you love them even more. So I believe in moving around. We do stuff in streetwear. We do stuff in, obviously, high luxury. We just launched a headphone, a very, very popular headphone with the luxury brand Celine. We do stuff in the automotive world. But beyond that, the most important thing, two probably the most important things, is I learned something, for me, being able to do collaborations with all these different types of brands, many of them in luxury. It's like getting your MBA in luxury. You get to learn so much about these brands and how they think and how they operate. So it's a great place to learn. And then I think why our collaborations are very successful is we seldom just change the color of a product. We seldom just slap a logo on it. We really like to, we like to show the effort from both companies, and we like to show the DNA of both companies. And that's why they're successful, not when they're just a master and dynamic product in a different color. That's not really our foray. That's not what we try and do. Yeah.
Is there maybe one specific one that you want to highlight that basically maybe underlines that a little bit?
Well, I think the uh, let me try and think. I wasn't prepared to talk about one in particular. And some of the collaborations we don't speak about publicly, even though they're public, because we may not be named in that collaboration.
Yeah.
Um, I did one recently with uh, he's the bassist for the band Coldplay. His name is Guy Berriman, uh, an amazing musician, super creative gentleman who has lots of diverse interests in um, fashion. He has his own fashion brand. He has a car magazine. He's a collector of furniture, and we created this first headphone, which was very successful. We leveraged our very iconic Master and Dynamic MH40, but Guy wanted to create something that paid homage to the Apollo era and NASA, and we sourced all these different materials, special materials and fabrication, and it it was a great success. And so it would have been easy for us to just change colors, but we actually really fought. I wish I had the images to show you, but that's a what I call a uh an a relatively easy collaboration for us. And then
Mm.
there's others where we just create a project from scratch, like the concrete speaker we did, the 35-pound concrete speaker we did with the architect David Adjaye several years ago, which
Mm.
could be one of my favorite pieces we've ever created, just
Yeah.
because no one ever done anything like that. So yeah.
This is incredible. And then maybe another topic that I find fascinating in your business, um, because it's a little bit different than, maybe if you think about some other luxury categories, like, when you think about leather goods or so, where you have a lot of technology in your products, or your products basically live also apart from design, from the technology side. What are maybe the kind of specific challenges to create kind of a technology product in luxury? Um, and what are things that you need to keep in mind when you design in a technology product?
Yeah, I think and we go through this a lot because we do a lot of technology products for and with luxury brands. And the reality is that in my opinion, uh the the consumer for a luxury audio product, I'm going to say, in this, you're saying tech, I'm obviously all my products are technology products, but they're all products.
Mm.
The luxury consumer that buys our products, or meaning with our collaborations with luxury partners, I think the first thing is, obviously they love the design, and that design incorporates a lot of the DNA and logos from that luxury brand. The second thing is they love the materials. It feels luxurious. Uh, the third thing is that it works really well. Um, Consistently great acoustics, great microphones. But if you we're not trying to make a product that is going to be at the bleeding edge of newest technology.
Mm.
Not that we compromise on technology, but if we have good data that says that the luxury anybody who's buying a $1,600 pair of earphones probably has multiple pair of AirPods as well, that they have a different relationship with, or more utilitarian.
Mm.
And we're constantly sort of, sometimes we have to educate our new partners on this, but most of them trust us that you know we're still making top of the best in class products, but we're not talking about the technology. We're not screaming the technology from the rooftops.
Mm.
um I don't know if that answers the question. It's a bit nuanced, but um I yeah.
Mhm. And then, if because one of the things that I noticed all the time, and this is for me one of the, was the game changer when I had the first time a Master Dynamic headphone over my ears, is just how amazing they sound. And to me, the acoustics is really what sets us apart. And and then of course also the noise canceling when I'm in the plane or so. But um, the I guess there's a lot of effort that goes in the acoustic tuning and so on. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How you get to this absolute incredible sound?
I think I mean, I'm going to, the true part of the story is that I think we just got very lucky from the start. When I started Master Dynamic, um, I had a very small team. I had never built any type of audio product. I had success and, a lot of experience in designing and building other products. As I said, I had, two music, obsessed sons. One was a DJ, young music producer. And I remember to this day, we created a playlist to tune the headphones to. And he would say, this is probably 2013, 2014. He was, how old then? He was 16 years old, maybe. And he was probably, was Kanye West and Jay-Z. But he also added some Philip Glass, the musical, the classic uh, music composer. I think being my age, I added some Van Morrison and a bunch of other people, some jazz and blues. And so what we created is this very this amazing mix of genres to tune to without knowing what the hell we were doing, quite frankly. And the first reviews came out, and a lot of the reviewers said that a couple things I remember is, they're genre agnostic, which is what we wanted to create. And I think the biggest compliment I got very early on was from a very significant reviewer, a very revered reviewer, and he said, "You should be congratulated because you realize you're in the music reproduction business, not the music production business." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Well, you're playing the music exactly the way the artist wanted it to sound. You're not changing it based on your own preferences." And that's become our North Star.
Mm.
That's become our North Star. And we don't skimp on materials or components. I would argue that we overbuild every product we make. We
Mm.
never focus on what it costs us. We focus on, is it something that we would be proud to put out in the market? And I think that's why so much of our business and is working with luxury firms or in different collaborations, because they trust us to make them the best product available.
Mm. If you mentioned that the company was founded like almost a decade ago from today.
I'm a 10-year overnight success, Daniel.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. So if you look back at the last 10 years, but also as you mentioned, as a maybe luxury consumer yourself, what would you say are kind of in your observations, the biggest changes that you see in a luxury client today versus maybe, when you started, and maybe even, from your observations before? So what are kind of the changes in lifestyle and expectations and maybe behaviors and preferences?
Of the luxury consumer?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good question. How have they it I think they want I'm trying to answer this in a different way, is that,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's our consistency and our discipline which enables us to play at the level we do. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then you take that forward, and I think the luxury consumer wants to trust the brand. They don't want, they want to believe in the brand. They don't want the brand to break what I call breaking the promise, that
Mm.
implicit promise of why they first engage with the brand. Um, yeah, I don't, it's a very good question. I want to, think about it again, but maybe I want to hear your, I mean, I know this is, you're supposed to be asking me questions, but I want to, I love the way you think, and I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you a question, if that's okay. The same question.
Wonderful. No, and maybe I build on what you said, that there should be an element of trust and an element of of a promise. And I think you are spot on. We are spot on with that, because if I look at the brands that, even if you take, brands that have been around for 150 years longer, or 60 years or so. So let's say legacy brands. And if you look at which brands have been successful over time, over decades, and which brands are kind of, brands that are sometimes going up, and then they have a phase where they go down, and then they have a phase again where they go up. Um, or maybe, even brands that are not performing. I really think that what you said is something that is very critical here, because what I observe is, if you look at, let's say, even the recent quarter figures that have been published by some of the luxury houses, there's some brands that are not doing well right now. And what I observe with the brands that are underperforming is that they have done quite radical changes over the last 1 or 2 years. Sometimes, they hire a new creative director, then change direction, cut almost ties with the past. And then the new creative director says, okay, now under my leadership, there is a reset of the brand, and the brand is now different. And what you see is that the customers are then a bit confused on what the brand really stands for. And I think if you see other brands, for me, let's say, for example, Hermes would be a great example. Chanel would be a great example, and Louis Vuitton would be also a great example, that had managed to go through periods where they had different creative directors. For example, when you think about Chanel, after Karl Lagerfeld, there was a huge question mark, because he was larger than life. How would the successor treat the brand? And the brand basically just continued and innovated, changed certain things, but was always true to their DNA. And I'm very, very impressed, for example, also with Louis Vuitton, because when you also see over the last couple of years the changes of creative directors, and then when they were really starting to disrupt even internally with Virgil Abloh, and then unfortunately when Virgil Abloh passed away, then again changes in creative directors, and now with Pharrell Williams again, was a phenomenal person there. But what they do extremely well is, each new creative director, to me, seemingly has a very good understanding of the DNA of the brand, and I think most importantly, a respect for the DNA of the brand. And then they bring their own individuality in, their own cultural fit in, and so on, and change things up and shakes things up, but it still remains the brand. While some other brands are not able really to do these transitions between, let's say, creative directors or creative direction, without basically going through ups and downs. And I think here, this what you said before, having this clear understanding of who you are is so critical.
Yeah, and I think there's another factor here, which is, that you have to be disciplined, you have to be patient, you have to take the long view. Think about, uh, you know, let's go back in time when, the story of Hermes, right? It was a saddlery company, and then, they realized that they were selling less saddles because there was something called an automobile, and I'm sure that was a bit of a terrifying period for them. But they stayed the course, and they innovated, and and then they went, like a lot of luxury companies that were family owned and multi-generational. Then they went public, and that sometimes can be the undoing of some of these luxury brands. If you talk, LVMH is public and they manage it very well. Hermes is public, they do a great job. Chanel is private. I think, quite frankly, that's to their benefit, because they can, again, don't have to worry about quarter to quarter. I think what happens, Ferrari is public, and from time to time, the markets may not agree with the strategy, and the market and the stock might, decline sometimes significantly. And that's where the great companies differ from the okay companies, is they don't panic, they stay the course, they don't let the stock price really affect their business strategy. And I think that's, again, goes back to what I said before. Discipline in luxury, consistency is really, really important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also, reflecting a bit more, I will borrow this word that you used before about effort, putting effort in. I think this is, to me, also a differentiator between brands that are consistently performing over time, and brands that, go through the up and down. Because sometimes I feel like there are certain brands that kind of cut corners. So they go to, there's a trend, and they follow the trend, and they see a competitor doing some things, then they try to, not for fear of missing out, then try to do something that this competitor is doing. And by this, they kind of almost, lose their identity of who they are. And I think also, when it comes to, I liked also very much what you said before around collaborations, which basically where you said both partners have to bring themselves in, and there has to be also like an intentionality in that, because there's also, again, I mean, collaborations now in the luxury world are somehow the name of the game, but there's, again, certain brands that where it feels that the collaborations almost are kind of random, and you don't see necessarily two DNAs coming together and then creating something different or something exciting, but something maybe more expected. And I think this kind of wow moments that you mentioned before are also so critical. But this intentionality, the effort, you can basically say it's probably even goes beyond just the product, but in almost everything that the brand has to do. And this then comes back to what you said about the being very consistent, and very focused in developing the brand.
Right. Being consistent doesn't mean you can't be creative and innovative and playful, but you have to, but within that, there has to be some type of trust and consistency from your fans and your consumers, right? They will, again, it's this concept it's like earning the permission from the consumer, right?
Yeah.
And not breaking the promise. So yeah.
And maybe one thing that comes to my mind right now is, you mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation that, for you, it's also very important who wears your headphones, so that basically your customers basically become the spokespeople of the brand. So I would be curious about, when it comes to connecting your brand with customers and getting the word out. And so what are for you also learnings over the last decade, and maybe also some critical success factors that you can share in basically, marketing your brand in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, make sure people understand. I don't worry about who's wearing my product or not. I think I'm very proud to have anybody wearing my product, and usually the people who make the effort to buy our product, there's a lot of options on the market. There's a lot of cheaper products on the market. People are making a considered purchase. And I did something, sort of, it wasn't really scientific, but back, I think almost around the time we launched, one of our trademarks was, and we talked about a lot, was we called it Sound Tools for Creative Minds.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably our first campaign and brand positioning. And as I would travel around New York City or in different cities, and I would see somebody wearing my headphones, I would stop them. I wouldn't tell them who I was. And I'd say something to the effect of like, and a lot of times I'd have to signal for them to take them off so they could hear me. And I'd say, hey, those are great headphones. Whose are they? And they'd say Master and Dynamic. And he's like, oh, it's this cool brand called Master and Dynamic. I was like, oh, where'd you get them? And they tell me where they bought them. I said, what do you think of them? And they say, oh, they're amazing. And then I'd ask them this last question, which they uh, they always would look at me a little bit strange at first, and I say, and what do you do for a living? And then they would tell me, and I would say, I would pull out my business card. I say, thank you, it's my company, and it was always a big surprise. And I would stay in touch with a lot of people. That's a long way of saying that the majority of the people I asked that question to were in creative fields.
Mm-hmm.
They were artists, they were designers. It was very interesting. It was very architects. It was very interesting to see. So, and that just helps, promote the brand. I mean, it's really, I truly believe in word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see somebody on the street wearing something different and they have a certain way about them or look about them, you always take a double take. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And how important is for Master and Dynamic social media?
Um, we do our own social. Well, I'll tell you, uh, it's important. We don't stress over it. Um, we are very, very fortunate that we get more, again, through our collaborations, when our partners who are much bigger in size than us have much bigger followers, when they post, it's amazing shot in the arm. Our social media is, if you were to go on our on at masterdynamic.com, at masterdynamic on Instagram right now, you would not see any celebrities. We don't use celebrities as a rule. We do have a lot of celebrities and influencers and musicians who wear our product. If they're photographed, we thank them. Uh, if uh, uh, if they post it, we thank them, but we never repost.
Mm-hmm.
We just we treat it with uh, I think it's what I would call quiet luxury. Before there was a term quiet luxury, we were sort of just, I think there's been a tipping point in fashion and luxury where there's almost over promotion with celebrities,
Mm-hmm.
and we just don't want to. That's not our thing. We let our
Yeah.
product speak for itself.
I love that, because to me it signals also a very strong self-confidence of the brand. And I feel sometimes when I see brands that are overusing celebrities or almost like depending on celebrities, it, to me, in today's world, feels almost a bit like, you almost beg for the acceptance, or for the celebrity to endorse you. And that for me takes a bit of way of like confidence of the brand. So I love that approach. Maybe my to conclude our conversation, I would be very curious where you see the future of luxury. And I know it's a big question, but what are like things that you see, trends and so on, where you think the future of luxury is going to go?
I think I mean, I'll go back to effort and discipline. I think what you're going to see is luxury brands probably creating higher, continuing to push higher and higher in price points, not to gouge the consumer, but to create products that of higher value, and probably create fewer overall products.
Mm,
And I think that's something I plan on doing at Master and Dynamic. Um, uh, I don't want to fill landfills with lots of headphones and batteries. We care about that, but I also think I think we're at a tipping point in terms of longevity, and I think people want there's a lot of wealth in this world, and you don't necessarily have to be extremely wealthy to be a luxury consumer, but I think people are going to there's a trend to wanting fewer but better things in your life.
mm, wonderful. I
Yeah.
think this is an amazing conclusion. And Jonathan, thank you so much for being on this podcast and taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. I thought it was a fantastic conversation. I learned a lot. And
Likewise.
yeah, thank you. And tomorrow,
All
when
right.
will be on my next flight, I will have these guys on again.
All right. Safe travels, Daniel. Good speaking with you. See you
Yeah,
soon.
likewise.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.